It's Debbie Potts, and I'm back with another interview with Dr. Elizabeth Bright. So get out your notes and get ready to replay this podcast 1 or 2 times, as well as watch our video we did this summer on my YouTube channel. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie, and have you used a CGM before? CGM is continuous glucose monitor, and there's different options out there. Ideally, you can get it from your doctor, but they seem to just want to wait until you're type 2 diabetic and not be preventative. I would like us to take ownership of our health and make choices now to prevent having high, low glucose readings and optimize your health from the inside out by testing and not guessing. And that includes a CGM that goes on for 14 days, and you can order one via NutriSense. And a CGM is giving you glucose updates with a small device in the back of your arm 24/7. Totally easy. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete, how to apply this CGM. First time, you're kind of scared, but it doesn't hurt. But it gives you real-time glucose readings. Glucose response to meals. You'll learn about what foods are reactive to you, and that could be a healthy food that you think is great, but it could raise your glucose. Simple things as stevia, for me, raise my glucose. Chewing gum, raise my glucose. Stress, when I'm driving a car and there's traffic, raises my glucose. Every stress response is a glucose response. So learn how to manage your stress. Learn how to pick right foods for you, unless you can, do other lab testing and figure out vibrant wellness food zoomers, but it's kind of expensive for people. So if you can wear a CGM, it's a great way to learn about stress, food, exercise, stacking movement with your nutrition. Figure out how to balance your blood sugar. So we want to learn more about how to exercise and eat or not eat. And morning cortisol, does it raise your glucose? If there's hidden stressors at nighttime, does your glucose go up higher while you're sleeping? So it gives us lots of clues that we can put in our investigation when we are working on your personalized fueling, training, and performance program to improve fat loss, performance, and longevity. So head to NutriSense website, nutrisense.io, how it works. You can learn more about your habits, your routines, your relationship to food, a little bit more. Great app to use, and it can sync on to different programs, so you can put it all together. So if you want to get started with your journey in NutriSense, I suggest this to all my clients. Use at least 30 days. So you can do a 30-day, 90-day, different programs, but you can pick which one you want. You get the sensor in the mail, put it on, lasts for 14 days, sync it to the app, and get your readings on there. And then if you're doing my VIP coaching program, I'm working with you to correlate this data together. So begin your health optimization journey with NutriSense, and you can save on your order with our code, as usual, Low Carb Athlete. So no carbs is not our goal, it's carb timing, and using NutriSense, you can help figure out your nutrient-dense whole food plan and when to adjust your macros based on your exercise intensity, duration, based on your life stressors, and learn more. So it's nice to have this data. So test and not guess with NutriSense. Let me know how you like it. All right, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go to YouTube and hit subscribe. So you could have watched this video I did this past summer with Dr. Elizabeth Bright and sent in your questions beforehand. So I am on Instagram more than Facebook, but Instagram is Low Carb Athlete. The YouTube channel is called the Low Carb Athlete Coach. Hit subscribe so you can get those videos once they are recorded, as well as my little mini workout demos I have been doing occasionally with some equipment I have at home for quick workout breaks. But you must get out your notepad and pen to write some notes from Dr. Elizabeth Bright. She is amazing. Find her on elizabethbright.com and get her book, Good Fats Are for Good Hormones by Dr. Elizabeth Bright. And she's working on a new book on thyroid health. So let's listen to Dr. Elizabeth Bright and stop listening to me. Here are some of the questions Dr. Elizabeth Bright will be talking about. Who needs iodine? Why? And how much should we use? Butter. What are the benefits? Do we need to fast to get cell autophagy? Do we need to be in nutritional ketosis? How long? How much fat should I eat? I can't eat butter because I have leaky gut and butter gives me indigestion and my stomach bloats. Which fats are best for me? Why in carnivore can triglycerides rise on their blood chemistry test? What else? We've got my skin. Is it possible to tighten my skin? And what do you suggest to build muscle? What are the best tests to check hormones? How long on carnivore should I start to experience changes in my hormone balance? What is the ideal balance of a high-fat, low-carb eating, fasting or not fasting, weight training, and more for women in their 40s? Next question, zero carb for too long. Does it spike my cortisol? Some people have suggested strategic carb intake before and during cycle, as well as Sally Norton's suggested combination of oxalate dumping. We'll talk about that and a bunch more questions we'll try to get to, and then we'll have to have her back on the show. Dr. Elizabeth Bright, bring her on. All right. I've got the very popular Dr. Elizabeth Bright back on the show from Italy, and I'm here in San Diego in the morning. It's her evening, and we are going to do a big Q&A session. We've got lots of questions, and we have an hour, less than an hour, so we're just going to go through it. I know so many people, Elizabeth, you're making such a big impact based on all the questions I got. What you're just making waves. Yeah, it's just fascinating to me because I try to help people that are struggling, the endurance athlete that's struggling with, fatigue and fat loss and or gaining weight and can't lose weight and just energy. And it is such an amazing, simple thing if we learn nutritional therapy for healing our hormones. And as I'm 51 already, that a lot of people are coming to me that going through menopause and how to not have those typical menopausal symptoms of, I just with a friend this weekend, I'm having hot flashes and she can't sleep at night and, struggling with this weight gain and losing muscle. And so I think what you're doing, you found your area that really is missing in our community to really help men and women, but specifically women with hormone balance and cortisol and thyroid as we age. And especially my audience is endurance athlete who tends to do too much of everything, too much fasting, too much exercise, and too much stress in their life. And busy women are just stressed out all the time, I think. So thank you for coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I want to just clarify symptoms associated with menopause, because it's not menopause that causes the symptoms. Mm-hmm. And yes, we're trying to help men and women, but the established medical system has used women throughout. That's what my book is about, basically, how historically medicine has directed medications and surgeries at women more than men. So that's an important point to make.
Yeah. All right. So let's hit the questions and I'll just kind of go with them. First one, just tying in just to summarize what we talked last time, but with cortisol, and there's a question on testing cortisol. If we have high cortisol or low cortisol and low thyroid, what should we do nutritionally versus, there's a lot of lifestyle habit changes, but anything on that we want to touch on?
Nutritionally, well, the thyroid needs protein and the adrenals need fat. Cortisol needs fat. So if you look at any kind of, there's a steroid hormone cascade, and now they also have one that's cholesterol/LDL. So doctors are screaming at you to lower your LDL. No, you need your LDL because that makes all the steroid hormones, and the poor liver is trying to make cholesterol, which is supposed to build your, regenerate brain tissue and myelin sheaths and things like that. But all the hormones are made out of the fat we eat, synthesized in the adrenals, and only if an egg is fertilized is it necessary in the ovaries. So for thyroid, you absolutely need iodine because our polluted world today, it's impossible to get adequate iodine from our food. So it's an essential nutrient. It's the only thing I recommend that it's not food. I mean, it is, because our food doesn't have it. And then you need to eat fat. So I don't know where you are, where someone is on what they say is their journey, but I certainly hit a wall when I hit 52. And that's where I went carnivore at 52 when I went into menopause. So I also think adolescents need a lot of fat. So let's say women need 40% more iodine and 40% more thyroid hormone during adolescence and during pregnancy. So those are the things that if a woman hasn't had it during adolescence, issues will definitely come up later.
So that goes with the next question with the iodine. Someone asked on the YouTube channel, everyone needs iodine. So it's more, who needs iodine? Does everyone need it? And then how much?
Needs iodine. Okay. So we used to say in the 80s, you could top up a sufficient system with 2 drops. That would be the old Jean Lugal from, he invented it in 1827. It's a 15% solution. People who villainize iodine made people scared, so they called it the 5% solution to make it seem smaller. So basically it's 15% potassium iodide, 10% potassium iodide, 5% elemental iodine. Has nothing to do with radioactive iodine, which is an entirely different thing that they shoot in you to kill your thyroid. So however, the world is a lot more polluted than it was in the 80s. There are forever chemicals, there are phthalates. What we used to worry about, just halides and bromide, which is I get probably my chair has, the cushioning on my chair has bromide. It's everywhere. But today we also have these other chemicals that are impossible for us to escape. So that's why I usually recommend a minimum of 4 drops of 5% now.
Okay, good. All right, butter. Why should we have butter in our coffee or have more butter on our steak and butter in general?
Well, I don't think tallow tastes really good in coffee, but decaf, because I drink decaf. I don't recommend stimulants. Fat, because that's what all those steroid hormones are made out of. And we can replenish when we exercise, we are using a lot of adrenaline, right? After 15 minutes of endurance, I know if it's not weight training, if your heart rate is high for more than 15 minutes, you will go into a fight or flight state. So you're using cortisol to address that fight or flight state. If you don't replenish that fat, you will have issues, cortisol issues.
Mm-hmm. Which I think everybody does somewhat, right? Okay. And then fasting was another question that came in. Do you suggest intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding?
I'm the anti-faster.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I don't. It's a good sign to be hungry in the morning. It's a healthy sign. You don't have to have what the Italians call the English breakfast. You don't have to have like sausages and eggs and stuff like that. I just have decaf and a bunch of butter. I do, though, have a small piece of jerky. If I do have the waves are bigger and I'm going out paddleboarding and my heart rate's going to be higher handling those waves, I'll have a little bit of protein. But usually it's just decaf and butter. But to me, that's not really a meal. So you could maybe say, it wouldn't be intermittent fasting, but there's no protein there. Mm-hmm. Usually. I'll have lunch and then I'll have dinner. If I have a lot of clients throughout the day, I may run and get a piece of jerky because my brain is on fire. So I need to give myself something during the day. So I believe it's snacking too, if it's fat or protein.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I was trying to put together a podcast on. Cell autophagy is always a benefit of exercise or of fasting, but look at how we can get that from exercise, that we don't need the cell autophagy by fasting, but we can get it through other ways as exercising.
Right. And I think that high fat carnivore, you are promoting autophagy. And guess what regulates autophagy? T3, thyroid hormone.
Oh, yeah. That thyroid does a lot. Thyroid in the liver and the adrenals. Okay. So next, more individual questions. Oh, the next one is nutritional ketosis. Do you think we need to be nutritional ketosis all the time, anytime, part-time?
Okay. So a lot of people aren't or can't in the morning because in order for us to sleep, our liver, we're not eating at night, right? So we're fasting at night. It's called breakfast. You break fast. So when you're sleeping, you're not eating. Your liver is going to produce blood sugar for you to get through the night to sleep, unless you have cortisol issues, of course. And then, oh my God, where'd the question go?
Ketones on the brain.
Ketones, yes. So ketones, I usually say measure ketones an hour after you've had a fatty meal, because in the morning they'll be low. And blood sugar will usually be higher than you expect it to be on a carnivore high fat keto diet, because that liver has been producing sugar throughout the night. So you want those ketones to be used. They have to be in circulation to give you energy, right? So you want to measure when you've replenished them, not when you're there and have become ATP already.
Yeah. I just think a lot of people too are chasing ketones and taking supplements and the drinks with ketones and everything ketones rather than naturally producing.
Yeah. I don't recommend anything made in a lab. Literally, your body makes it. Why buy it? Made in a lab.
Okay. So Amaria, how much fat should someone eat? She can't eat butter because she has a leaky gut and butter gives her indigestion and her stomach bloats. Is it really the butter? The question is what fat is best for me if she has those issues.
Okay, so obviously your immune system is looking for viruses and proteins, viruses and bacteria, right? So these are made out of proteins. So gluten can have an effect. Dairy proteins can have an effect. That's why I don't usually recommend the white dairy like mozzarella and kefir and things like that, because there's a ton of milk proteins in them. Butter has a teeny tiny amount of milk protein. However, someone who's very sensitive, has high food sensitivities, their immune system is hyper vigilant, may react to the butter. Very few people do, but some do. I would say lamb and beef tallow, but I would also further investigate if that person has amenorrhea. They're probably hypothyroid or they need a bunch of iodine.
Yeah. So there's a lot more that you need to investigate for that question. Is that good to work with a coach, go through your program. So leaky gut butter. So which fats? We got that. So why in carnivore can triglycerides rise?
Well, they initially rise because maybe you're eating higher fat. So triglycerides are basically unused fat. I see people, so initially they'll rise because if you've been eating low fat for decades, they're definitely going to go up because all of a sudden there's more fat. They're made out of, they're fatty acids. They're basically energy that hasn't turned into ATP yet. If it remains, and it may be a transition period, but if they remain high, there is an issue with your turning those triglycerides into fatty acids into ATP. So again, cholesterol, I want women between 220 and 320. If it's 500, and their triglycerides are over 100, and it stays that way, I would say look into thyroid function. That was one of the older diagnostic tests for thyroid function, was if you had high, I mean 500, 700. I don't mean 300 cholesterol.
Wow. That is high. Okay, next question. I have been doing high fat carnivore for a year now. My hormones have gotten so much better. I'm sleeping great. Sex isn't painful anymore. I am still having trouble building muscle and my skin is a little creepy. They lost skin and muscle tone after a few years. Is this chronic stress? From chronic stress. So I think the question is it possible to tighten the skin? And what do you suggest to build muscle? She lifts weights 2 to 3 times a week. No more cardio, just movement.
All right. Well, first I want to address the skin issue. So loose skin is related to low B12, low zinc, and low thyroid. So mommies who have tummy tucks after they've had babies, if the skin is not elastic enough to go back to the way it was before, that's often a thyroid issue. I have patients coming to me with, this skin is not taut enough, or the skin has to have a certain amount of elasticity. Ligaments can also become too stretchy. So stretchy skin, stretchy ligaments, uterine prolapse, things like that. Basically, it's not because you had a couple of kids, it's because you are probably hypothyroid because your ligaments have become too lax and they don't have the stretchiness again. So if the fact that sex is no longer painful anymore is she's eating a high-fat diet and the fat is addressing the cortisol issues, we know that vaginal secretion is reduced with high cortisol. So probably lowering the cortisol helped that tremendously. And maybe she needs to do, weight some more in order to fix the skin. I recommend weight training. Definitely. Not cardio, because if you had cortisol issues before, having vaginal dryness would mean you had cortisol issues, would mean you had high cortisol. So I, on a 76 something fat to 24 protein, built 3 kilo on muscle in 2 months. I was just paddleboarding. My husband had to rehabilitate his knee, so he joined a gym, so I did too. And I'm 60 and I did it on a high fat diet. So it's possible.
Yeah. I think for sure lifting more weights, but not doing, 12, 15 repetitions. I'm finding more the 5 to 8 repetitions.
Higher weight, fewer reps, higher weight. Absolutely.
I like 3. Less is more, just 3 reps heavy and then do that cycle through. So I think a lot of women are afraid to do they're going to get big and bulky.
Yeah. They're trying to get into cardio. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest mistake, especially our endurance athletes listening tend to do cardio for training for races and then they stop racing and then they're just still doing the cardio, not focusing on the strength part. And as we age, I think that's huge. Okay. Next question. What are the tests for checking hormones if weight loss is a challenge? And there's 3 other questions tied to that.
Okay. So a salivary cortisol test, because if you have cortisol issues, your body will be in a fight or flight, either low or high. Your body will be in a hypersympathetic state, and hence it thinks it's in danger. Hence, it will hold on to weight in order to give you the calories to run like hell from danger. So it doesn't know that you're under stress. It doesn't know that you're possibly abusing your cortisol system. It just knows that you're in a fight or flight state, which is also inflammatory. And when that is turned off or addressed, weight usually comes off. Thyroid is also important to test because the thyroid regulates metabolism. So the person who had 700 total cholesterol and 170 or 200 triglycerides, that person who was a patient had a thyroid issue. And as soon as we addressed the thyroid function, the cholesterol dropped and the triglycerides dropped. So the inability to metabolize energy in itself is a thyroid, hypothyroid symptom.
So their follow-up questions were, how long on carnivore should one give to start experience changes in hormone balance?
As we say in Italy, it depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah, hard one.
So I will say, though, that both men and women are on a 30-day cycle. So the endocrine system uses a 30-day cycle for both men and women. So definitely give, a month or so.
Yeah. What role does cortisol play in hormone balance, specifically when weight loss is an issue? Kind of already said that. What is the ideal balance of high fat, low carb eating, fasting or not fasting, weight training, act for women in their 40s? So premenopausal, ideal balance. I think we talked about that. Not fasting.
Not fasting, weight training. I would say, there is no premenopause because you are either fertile or you're not. So perimenopause was invented in the 80s, doesn't exist. The symptoms that people have are related to cortisol issues. So I would say, again, a 75-25 ratio of fat to protein for somebody who doesn't have huge inflammatory issues.
So you're saying instead of saying premenopausal, we should just call it fertile and not fertile?
Yeah, because basically
Phases.
that's what happens.
Yeah.
You look, women, we evolved to look down and say, oh, at 18, not 12 or 11.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm bleeding. There you go. I got my period. And then when we are, however old we are in our 50s, we look down and we no longer have our period. We're not supposed to have PMS or whatever they call it now, PMDD. We're not supposed to have any symptoms. This is a natural occurrence that is not supposed to come with pain or issues of any sort. So yes, going from the child to fertile biological being to incredible older woman who, like the orcas, leads all the pods to the hunting grounds. They are libraries of knowledge. So
yeah,
older women ensure that grandchildren, the species survives.
Amazing. All right. So 0 carb for too long, does that spike our cortisol? Some people have suggested carb intake before and during cycle.
Yes. Okay. So I don't agree with that. I have the book that those papers, they're papers in the 80s. They put everybody on an 800 calorie diet and their T3 levels went down. Of course, their T3 levels went down. They're not eating enough food. Your body will not make energy, will not make tissue if you are not giving it the nutrients in order to do so. That's a starvation state. You don't need carbs for anything.
Hormones not even, because this is what I keep. So high intensity exercise or anything, you don't need.
All right. So if you're Zach Zimmer, right? Or Zach
Bitter.
Zach Bitter. Yeah. If you're running 100 miles, if you run 100 miles and don't stop, I don't think you can quickly enough metabolize. He eats what, a banana or something, or, I mean, I don't think anybody should be doing that. So yes, definitely. If you're working out to that intensity, you may need to have some carbs across the finish line. Personally, your cortisol levels are a mess.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're all here. Cortisol, exercising too much and too many races that are, Ironman distance stuff is not good for us.
Yeah, I used to compete a lot in Kung Fu, and a woman just asked me today, why don't you join the team and race paddleboarding? I don't want to. I had enough stress. I love paddleboarding, but I don't want to have the stress of competition. I know that I would be a better paddleboarder if I had a team to train with. I don't have the time, and I have healed my cortisol levels from fighting in Kung Fu and going to lots of tournaments and stuff like that. Been there, done that.
That's what I would say. Exactly. Not Kung Fu, but triathlons, marathons. Like, I just been healing for 8 years. I don't think I can go back and do that again. Start all over. Okay. So Sally, the other part of this question was Sally Norton's suggested combination of oxalate dumping along with 0 carb might trigger cortisol issues, suggesting similar. So I think
I haven't seen that.
Okay. Is it normal problem for large weight fluctuations at 24 BMI now and can't seem to hold it there or get the last 10 pounds off at age 62? I don't know if that was, part of it.
Well, I gotta say that all body scans are kind of rigged. So I wouldn't trust a DEXA scan or a FRAX or anything anyway, because if you read my book, I document how they were using the statistics to measure 50-year-old women. They were using the bone density numbers for 30-year-old women. So not fair. So I don't, if the person is just trying to lose the last 10 pounds, I don't know. I think that, be patient and make sure your cortisol levels are okay.
So managing stress and lifting weights and not doing excessive cardio.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Running does not make you, burning calories doesn't make you, after 50, it can make you lose weight until you reach when your body decides you're a fertile being, it will not allow you to go to extremes because you are by default a biological fertile being. So at 15, it might work for a while, but when you hit, definitely women who have babies know this, right? You can't fast, you can't starve, you can't allow, your body won't allow you, it will make you gain weight if you starve or fast, because by default, it will protect your ability to be fertile, which means not fasting and not having high cortisol levels.
Yeah. It's just amazing how smart our body is. It's just that innate intelligence is just insane. All right. So we already tackled this one, I think. Fasted workouts, resistance training, yes or no. So if you're working out in the morning, I guess we didn't talk too much about more intermittent fasting, but exercising in a fasted state, if you work out in the morning or afternoon, I would never have anybody work out after. Okay. So I don't know if you've seen the cortisol curve, right? It starts producing cortisol at 2 a.m. and it has this lovely peak at between 6 and 8, and then it just gently goes down until 2 o'clock in the morning until it starts again. So the apex is between 6 and 8. That's when you should be working out, because that's when you have plenty of cortisol to handle all that cortisol and adrenaline you're using by working out. So I would say it's safe to say maybe it's okay to work out till like noon. After that, I've had people who I stopped them from running at night and switched it up, because if you look at the curve, when your cortisol is low at night and in the evening, when melatonin is supposed to be produced and sun is going down, you're supposed to be getting ready to chill out and go to bed, and you end up jacking up your cortisol with adrenaline. That's not a good thing. Yeah. And the food part, again, in order to create that beautiful cortisol peak, you need cholesterol. So that's why I have the high fat in the morning, and I recommend high fat in the morning. And I would I would never go paddleboarding without having had a bunch of fat. So butter, your choice is butter in your decaf. Because I have a decaf, yeah, but you can have tallow bars, or, it doesn't have to be decaf. I mean, people like making browning butter and putting it in hot water. And so, yeah, you guys have carnivore bars in the States. That's 80-20. Mm-hmm. Yes. Tried them on the cruise. Okay. Well, let's see. Where am I? That talks about liver. Good question. I always find this important to talk about. If I have a sluggish liver and or gallbladder, along with Hashimoto's, what is recommended in order to have a high fat diet? So I think a lot of people don't digest their fat properly, and a lot of people have congested liver. Well, okay. So, but congested. Okay. So the gallbladder is a reserve of bile. A lot of my patients who have had hypothyroid or are hypothyroid come to me minus their gallbladders, because they had gallstones, because the bile salts were not properly. Either they weren't eating fat and they didn't use the bile, or they weren't able to metabolize the fat that they were eating. Mm-hmm. So I would always, a hypothyroid gut isn't going to have any HCl, lipase, or bile enough anyway. The liver makes less. It's not so much the liver is sluggish, it is that the signals to the liver are sluggish. Mm-hmm. So I recommend, definitely, I'm not a big supplement person, but for that transition period of high fat, I recommend ox bile. You guys in the States have Lipogold, which is the highest content of lipase of any supplement I've ever seen. And hydrochloric acid for the protein, because we can basically metabolize carbohydrates on our tongue with our saliva. That's all it needs to break down carbohydrates. But the food we need, the fat and the protein, actually needs adequate, robust digestive mechanics. And if there's Hashimoto's, then there's a thyroid issue. So probably low thyroid is causing that deficiency of digestive mechanics. So anything on apple cider vinegar or bitters before you eat, would that help for digestion? Are you a fan? No. Acid, I don't really, bitters, I have a stepmother, my stepmother's German, and she would make me drink this really famous German bitter stuff. That comes from plants. Yeah. We don't need it. It's just plant stuff. So I was just at this. I'm sorry. Yeah. Liver flush, right? Yeah. Basically, the famous olive liver oil flush.
basic, well, Epsom salts, and then the olive oil. You're basically shocking your liver to shake it so that it dumps crap out, right? Same with the gallbladder flush. You make it go into a spasm, right, to dump stuff out. Not the nicest thing to do to your organs.
Yeah. But the flesh, is that the one you like with olive? I know olive oil is one because I've seen others that
I
are
used to
orange
use it as a
juice.
naturopath. Used to recommend it. I think that if we're eating a high-fat carnivore diet and our endocrine function is working optimally, we don't need to shock our organs into dumping crap that they have. Those things will just naturally be just like, a disc, a protruding disc. If you remove the compression from this, spine, the disc is absorbed again. And, or if you give iodine to somebody with, fibroids or nodules, they'll be sucked back in. So the body, as you said, is wonderful, and it will eat up the stuff that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so let me see. I'm finding it very difficult to lose weight in perimenopause and actually gaining weight. Am I eating too much fat, too much calories? What is good amount of fat during this phase? I recently heard women on other podcasts said she ate less fat. I just started working out strength training, but the scale won't budge. Thank you.
I don't know enough to answer that question. How tall are you? How, that's really important. When I make a protocol, it's never calorically high for their build. It's less protein and more fat. So calorically, it's identical to how they would be eating if they were eating lower fat. It's just I've reduced the macronutrient and increased another one. So again, it's not calories. I don't have enough information really to answer that.
How do you find their calories? Are you figuring out their calories, or are you just going by the macros? Or both?
I'm going by how tall they are, their build.
How tall?
So I'm not going to give a 5'5" person the same amount of calories as a 5'8" person.
Yeah. So do you use a calculation like a TDEE or any of those?
Sort of. Sort of.
They're so old.
It's also, I mean, it's this. I mean, we know that we need a minimum, right, to just be alive, right? So it depends also upon your activity level to some extent. I mean, 70-20 for me is an anti-inflammatory protocol. So it will, as long as the person is in ketosis, then they are reducing inflammation and therefore improving their health. So weight loss is not, I address health. Weight loss comes after the body is healthy and everything is balanced and there are no deficiencies.
So be patient. Just stick with it.
Yes.
So 4 to 6 weeks probably. Okay. I've been carnivore for a few months now. I recently let go of dairy, which I've really enjoyed because I wasn't feeling well, I'm not noticing they're starting to lose interest in their food and getting bored with it. Yeah. They love nuts. So a couple more things. Love nuts, which they consumed while on keto, although they're not on carnivore. What are your thoughts incorporating them into the diet and if they'd affect her? So eating nuts.
I think nuts are evil because of the phytic acid, just like I think beans are evil because of the lectins. I recommend carnivore because it doesn't have any anti-nutrients. So we do know that some nuts are more evil than others. So the most evil is almond, which a lot of keto recipes have, almond flour. The least evil is macadamia because it has obviously fewer lectins and a higher amount of fat in it. Peanuts are legumes. Cashews are legumes. Again, that means they're beans, so they're full of lectins. I would not, if you're trying to make any healthy changes, I wouldn't add nuts.
How do you know if you're reactive to them? Do you find people have certain symptoms if they don't do well with the lectins, the anti-nutrients?
It could be anything. It could be anything. You remove something for a couple of weeks and then you add it back in. And if things got better and they get worse when you add it back in, that's kind of how you know.
Yeah. Elimination.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was that. And then Another question, just nutritional ketosis. Do you do a flex, like be in and out of it?
No.
We kind of touched on just, should you be in it all the time, or is it just goal to burn fat? Some people ask that all the time.
I'm doing it because I don't want to get Alzheimer's. So
yeah, me too. That's my focus.
So, I want to be as healthy as I can be. My son did it because at 35, he had arthritis. He's a musician, so can't have arthritis at 35, but he was eating a lot of lentils because he was a starving artist. So, as I said, I would only measure once a day after a fatty meal after lunch. So then you're not dealing with the gluconeogenesis. That's not interfering. Obviously, if you go for a run, you won't be in ketosis. You will be in ketosis, but your ketones will be gone because they will have been used as energy. So I think that, again, people are, as you said before, people are chasing numbers.
Yeah.
Too much.
I think people, if we are just burning fat, that's a goal. Do we need to be metabolically flexible so we are able to metabolize fat and then switch back to carb metabolism when we are running from that line or doing a sprint end of a race or something, or in the morning you're naturally burning the glucose? I think it's the fear of being nutritional ketosis all the time, losing your flexibility to flex from fat to carbohydrate metabolism. Yeah.
Eat a banana if you need it because in a race. Yeah, that's not something I deal with much. So I'm not, I don't, I would consider that who ran 9 miles, 10 miles a day, 6 days a week in my 20s, that, I was like I was an endurance athlete. Kung Fu would not be an endurance athlete because it was fighting. So it was different. I think, I just find carbohydrates inflammatory. So if you are in such, your glucagon is at a point where you have burnt through so much that if you are exercising and you have that carb, that is not going to be inflammatory to you because you have adequate glucagon levels and you are not going to spike insulin. However, your cortisol levels may be high, and that will cause gluconeogenesis by itself.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other question was on tracking. Do you suggest tracking with heart rate variability, with a CGM? We talked about testing ketones once a day. Do you help people manage their stress that have cortisol stress issues? And how would you suggest tracking to know, am I doing better?
Well, I definitely use blood sugar as a way to see if a food is inflammatory or not. You can see your blood sugar go up if you eat an inflammatory food. So there was something called the Alfred Koka test from the 50s, where he would have people bring foods to the office, and he'd just have them put them in their mouth for a minute, and he'd measure their pulse. If their pulse went up, that food was inflammatory to them. So I don't think any allergy test is nearly as accurate as an elimination protocol or something like measuring your blood sugar if the food causes inflammation. However, if you eat that food every day, your immune system won't be able to react properly. So you're going to have to eliminate it for a while before you can have a proper immune response. Not a big measurer. So heart rate, I use that more for thyroid and things like that. Cortisol is going to be more of a blood sugar issue. You can have reactive hypoglycemia. People with low cortisol are insanely insulin sensitive. Mm-hmm. So the people who get hungry, they eat and they just they have a crash after they eat. Those are the people who probably have low cortisol because too much insulin was produced. So that's why fat, again, is better because it does not provoke any insulin spike, whereas protein can. Carbs definitely can.
Yeah, I think I look back, I was just thinking when I got my adrenal exhaustion, whatever you want to call it, it was 10 years ago, but I was doing high fat, but I wasn't doing probably enough protein. And I think I wasn't doing enough calories. So I think a lot of, do you find that with people that are athletes, because they're still training a lot, working out, but I was doing the fat coffee all morning and I'd have one meal a day, but I was exercising 3 times a day and moving all day, training clients, that I think there's also must be something with the stress of not eating enough calories, even if you're doing a high fat diet.
Yes, definitely. It's if you're eating a hypocaloric diet, that in itself is a stress, which is why I don't recommend fasting or intermittent fasting. So yeah, definitely. My husband just goes for a bike ride and has a cappuccino every few towns, you know?
Yeah, that's what we do when we're riding over there. It's the stop, gas station, coffee. Espressos everywhere. So I think that's a thing with a lot of people that are driven, ambitious, high performers. Athletes are not, but tend to do everything they hear about on other podcasts and other leading experts in the area, but take everything to the extreme that this is supposed to be good for me. More is better. That I don't think people are really listening to how is my energy? How is my sleep? How do I feel? How's my poop? And paying attention to all these things that could be red flags if you're doing it too much. So going back to not eating enough. Yeah, I'm doing keto carnivore, but I'm not eating more than once a day. And I'm doing this fasting, and women are really trying to do these 24-hour fasts and 16/8 fast. And they're doing all the other stuff too. And I think everyone is I always come to less is more because everyone's doing so much of everything that I think ends up being more stressed because they're doing the cold plunges, they're doing the sauna, they're doing the training, they're doing all these biohacking things, but then they're just stressing their body out by doing so much of everything. Right?
Yeah, well, those other biohacking things are basically your body thinks it's freezing to death or it's dying. So, I mean, exercise should be fun. I'm sorry. I just think that I exercise because don't want to break when I fall down. I like being on the sea. It's really hot here right now, so it's even more. I have to try to get out earlier. The heat is another stressor. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people say earlier, you had somebody say the food is boring. It's giving me nutrition to do all this stuff that I like to do. So, to me, it's just nutrition. I understand the mindset because I think I was there too. I wanted to, win at tournaments, forums, and I wanted to, be able to fight the guy who was bigger than me. But the thing is that I also had a crash from that, and I stopped exercising for a year, and that's basically what I had to do in order to be able to do what I do now and feel as good as I feel now. And if you don't sleep, you're overdoing it. That's definitely, sleep is like the first thing that's going to go.
Yeah. Well, I know that firsthand. It is the big thing. And that's why I freak out when I don't have a good sleep. Like, no, I don't want to go back there. So that's our motivation not to race and do these events as we used to. So just talk about the book. So I think we didn't get into as much, but good fats for good hormones, carnivore for
good
women.
Fat is good for women. Good fat is good for women because women are always told not to eat fat because we have to be, not look voluptuous. It's such a, just good. I could go on forever about that. So, women are not supposed to eat meat. Women and all over the world and children are iron deficient because they don't eat meat. Most cultures don't give women meat, etc. Blah, blah, blah. It just goes on forever. My book is basically tells you the history of how medicine has approached women through history. So I chose for the Audible, I chose a woman who didn't sound like she was in her 50s purposely because I do want to write. I want younger women to understand this too. And I talk about younger women, my own history in my book. And I have, as I said, finished all the research for the adolescence book, but I just don't have the time to write it. So all women need to understand that we are proteins and all those steroid hormones are made out of fat. So medicine is telling us not to eat fat.
I think it's that constant battle, right? We have to fight the doctors because I know my clients, I've trained 25 years. He still goes to his doctor and the high cholesterol is just tiny bit high, but he's on statins and he thinks lower is better. I'm like, no, let's look at the chart of your hormones that you need fat. That's just the doctors think they know. People listen to doctors over practitioners.
They can't, I mean, since the Ansel Keys report, they can't really go back now. There's a huge industry built on it. So, you'd have egg on your face. They would have egg on their face. If all of a sudden they said, oops, we were totally wrong, that wouldn't go over very well. There would be a huge loss of face.
I should I'll read Nina's book, The Big Fat Surprise. That book was, 500 pages, but oh gosh, that book, we were required to read it for nutritional therapy practitioner program. And that was just like, I was so fired up reading that. You just get so angry going, what? We were told all these lies.
Yeah. So I think my book is for women's hormones, basically, that same people.
Yeah, it's so important. And then your next book ideally is for teenagers, adolescents, and then you have one on thyroid you want to go into too.
Yes, when I can, when I'm ready to not practice anymore. I have to say things that are so contrary to what is said that, by the medical establishment, that I, have to be careful.
So now you're a naturopath practicing doctor on remote, so you can work with anybody around the world and focusing on women, or what's your mission?
No. I treat everyone. I don't treat children, obviously, because I'm not a pediatrician, but I had an actual studio with many human patients, but COVID happened. And in Italy, we had to close our studios for 2 years. So I was not able to touch human patients for 2 years. And I decided that when it opened up, that I didn't want to have gloves on my hands. I can't feel any tissue congestion with gloves on my hands. So I just closed the studio and moved it all online. I already had Skype patients who were further away. And, but now it's all online globally.
It's probably a blessing in disguise, so you can reach out more people than just where you live, right?
Yes. I miss, there's something about actually, I mean, a lot of my patients actually also could use a manipulation, but I'm not, able to do that.
Yeah, so I can't do that on Zoom.
No, not yet. Yeah, maybe with the Star Trek thing.
I know that's the thing you can't do with that. In nutritional therapy did the functional evaluation. I haven't done it for 3 years. So I have to retrain myself how to do all the points that we would test people on. But that's a missing part of the touching humans, reaching out, touching. Yes. And then how can people find you? Let's say your website again, and the books on Amazon is best place.
Yes. Books on Amazon. It's going to come out in a few different languages pretty soon. Eliz at elizbright.com. Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah. Well, and then lastly, I think finish up question is, what is your favorite meal plan or meal ideas? You share some on Instagram. What are some people think it's boring and they don't know what to eat? So what are some you suggest in your favorite meals?
Well, I'm in Italy and I don't like the meat here. So we order Irish ribeye. We also just got some Irish lamb. When my daughter had a baby 6 months ago, we were there in Scotland. We had the best lamb ever, and we were just loving that lamb. But I just eat ruminant. My husband is happy eating some chicken. He roasts chicken with like a stick of butter. I just do better with beef. I think it's the iron content. I love my beef jerky. I make beef jerky out of skirt steak. It's called in English, skirt steak, hanger steak, very fatty. I make meat cookies that I was teasing my son. I said, looks just like an oatmeal cookie. He said, get out of here, Mom. It's the leftover of the meat that I make from the beef ribs where I make my tallow bars. So they're mostly fat, mostly tallow, and a little bit of crunchy fried meat. Oh. And the rest of it, I puree and make meat cookies with my dehydrator. And that's about it.
So is your husband a foodie? Because my husband loves cooking and likes to do all these meals. Is it both of you just simple is better? Or do you like
simple is better? I mean, I remember I actually was a chef. He had restaurants and I was a chef. And I remember him telling me, this plate needs more color, and okay, I'll put a piece of red pepper on it. But I think when I was a teenager, eating a hypocaloric diet, I would take salads to school in a jar because I was always dieting. And my mom was a big cook. My mom made crazy thing in a cookbook, and everything was homemade. So that kind of got me into it. And I was her sous chef, like for Thanksgiving dinners and stuff. So I cooked a lot. And I remember trying to make food seem, because women are working, women are busy, make it less, you have these chef and these cooking shows and everything seems like it has to be complicated. I don't think it should be complicated. I used to make recipes more easily accessible to people, because we do want to do other things like go paddleboarding and read books and whatever.
Yeah,
so
listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts. He's not, he just he's Italian, and he doesn't eat pasta anymore. He doesn't miss it. He's very happy with how he feels, and he's 77. He was racing 2 years ago, not allowed to race anymore in Italy at that age. So, we're foodies, but we'll go. I think that carnivore diet to us is that if we go visit my daughter in Scotland and there's some Scottish thing we can't get, we're definitely going to try it, like a scone with clotted cream. It's not that we can't eat it. We choose to eat this way. And it's not going to throw us off or hurt us if we do.
That's a good word, that you choose to eat this way, and it's not a diet. So when I'm working with clients, trying to get them to eat more of this way and focus this way, that it's not necessarily a 30-day challenge for some people. Some people may feel better doing a strict elimination, then go, okay, this is what I'm doing, majority of the time, but have those days that you might have something that's not carnivore, but that it's sustainable if you allow that. Once you pass a certain point that you feel like I'm healed, I've got everything in balance, I'm in tune with my body and how I feel, that I can do something once in a while. That was a whole nother topic, because that won't throw me into a binge or set me off cycle to go into if I have a carb addiction issue or sugar addiction.
Well, I don't believe in addiction. I believe in the body's inability to make energy adequately. So any stimulant, if your body's looking, the little kid that had candy in his pockets is going to grow up to possibly have an alcohol or a drug or a marathon issue, because they all produce the same thing, adrenaline. So if you're able to make energy properly in a healthy way, you won't have an issue giving yourself energy. Adrenaline gives you quick energy. Sugar gives you quick energy. It's a stimulant like anything else that's a stimulant. So for me, I think that we as humans evolved to eat mostly meat and fat. And if we ran out of meat, eat a couple of berries off a tree. But if we don't go back to the meat, backbone has to be ruminant. That's the healthiest way to be. Yes, you can stray. And once you're healed, exactly as you said, as I said, my husband eats chicken, doesn't turn me on. He'll cook himself a half a chicken, and I'm just going to have my steak. I literally do not feel satiated eating chicken. So
me too. I think I ate it too much growing up. That's like, blah, chicken. I'm just happy with steak and butter and salt.
I'm hungry. I want my steak. And if I do go have a scone maybe in Scotland, I'm going to want my steak anyway, because I just felt like I didn't eat. Yeah,
exactly. That's what you growing up. And growing up, same thing. I would eat salads all the time, and just big, huge salads. And I realized, okay, that doesn't fill me up at all. So I choose to, focus on the protein. So anyways, I'll let you go eat dinner so you can get to your evening. So thanks so much for your time. And we'll put the links in the show notes. And you did a great talk on the Carnivore Cure program, and Judy's podcast I just listened to yesterday. You just did, what's her podcast called? Carnivore Cure for adolescents. So I sent that to my girlfriend. That I was like, you got to listen to this. People struggling with depressed kids. That's a huge topic to really share that info. So thank you for what you're doing.
I'm going to have an article, or rather a video, because I have more to say on that. So I'm going to do something else.
We've been talking, a lot of my friends with kids, I don't have kids, so I just hear it all the time. So I think it's important to go into that more. So thank you. All right. Have a good evening, and we'll hopefully keep in touch and talk again.
Okay, great.
Hey, my fellow aging endurance athletes, just a reminder, if you like what you listened to today, make sure to share this episode with your community. Head to debbiepotts.net to set up a free discovery call to learn more about my personalized coaching programs, especially if you are on a mission as myself to improve the aging process and start training to be my best self when I am 80, 90 years old. So I am on a mission to live my best life and be my best self the second half of my life. So if you're on the same mission as me, head over to my website and YouTube channel to learn more ways to improve the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Don't forget to check out some of my favorite products and use our code Low Carb Athlete, and you will be helping support the podcast with that affiliate link. So check out HVMN Ketone IQ. I like to get those ketone shots to use on a busy, mentally demanding day, as well as on a long bike ride, and help for recovery and repair. Also, Paleo Valley, my go-to for some nutrient-dense organ capsules. Their vitamin C booster I'll take in the fall-winter season coming up, and my favorite, fermented beef sticks. So Low Carb Athlete code to save on Paleo Valley, as well as LMNT, my go-to electrolytes every day. I get the unsweetened because I don't like stevia, but check out their different flavors and you can test out which flavor you like the best with their variety pack when you use my code Low Carb Athlete. Thank you for supporting the show.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.